sitting here. Good morning. Good morning, Luca. How are you guys? Good. Good to hear. Good to hear. Six Sigma traders. Good to know. Oh, wait a minute. All right. Let me get my trusty trading hat on. I might have to change this one today. I don't know. It's getting. I washed it. And it's getting a little tight. It's getting a little tight there. Cool. Good to know. Thanks, Luca. All right, guys. We're gonna jump right into the charts. Okay. Let's get through our morning briefing so we can be prepared for the open. All right. So, needless to say, we had the big gap up on the potential on the ceasefire event. We all know what happened there, and now we have this big, huge candle print from yesterday. The low of that was 66.52, and we made a high of 68.47. So essentially a 200-point move, 2.2% gap up that pretty much happened in the span of about 2 hours. Okay, so puts us in a pretty, from a technical standpoint, we're still kind of in limbo. I mean, these are rare moves. These big sigma moves are really rare. So and coming into yesterday, we spoke about being a little bit more patient and allowing the market to settle in and respecting the big gap move up, right? So we have to be mindful of those we have to be mindful of emotional opens, and when the market tends to gap like that in very emotional moves, trading can be erratic, especially around the open. Okay. All right, so we don't have much of a read on off of our daily, right? So basically, after the 195-point candle print yesterday, price is now squarely and clearly above all of our moving averages, so above, all the moving averages that matter. So we're above the 200, we're above the 20, we're above the 50, and price is just hovering near the top. Okay. Let's review what we said yesterday. So we're going to focus in here on the hourly chart. So the question we were trying to pin down over the course of last week and into the big gap up was the 63.53 low a good tradable low? Meaning, should we start flipping our approach from selling risks to buying dips? Okay. And it was obviously it's obvious now that a flip was necessary, but up until that point it really wasn't obvious, because as we kept highlighting, and you can see here on the gray bar here, the gray rectangle, the hourly chart still was still in a downtrend. So we had lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, and you can see right here that price was just hovering just below this high right here and couldn't breach it. And because price struggled to take that, to breach that high and make a new high and change the hourly trend, I think we need to keep that on our charts, at least going forward, until we resolve this or figure out what the next move is. Obviously, when we have big gap moves like that, the market tends to want to correct that move, right? This is all thin, thin structure, low volume trade that ultimately the market will re-auction that area and see if it holds true. So let's start from the bottom. Okay. So 63.53 low. Let me just blow this out a little bit so we can get a clearer read. Price is just chopping around right now. I'll get to that in a minute, but we're really not going anywhere. All right, so 63.53 low. The first low, and the ES loves to do this, right? The initial low was 63.60 quarter, right? And that was on March 29th. The very next day, price came right back down, put in a look below and fail of the 63.60, made a low at 63.53, and it was game on to the upside for a 300-point move. All right. So after that 300-point move, what did the market do? What it often likes to do, right? So it wants to go back and test these buyers to make sure to see if they are true. All right. So that pullback. Oh, also real quick, let's not forget that 300-point move kind of put in the left shoulder and a head here, and then the subsequent pullback of the 300-point move to test it to see if it held true. Price pulled back and made a to the tick or to the point 50% retracement of the 300-point move. So price pulled back 150 points, liquidating a lot of these late buyers. Essentially, if you weren't long from within this low distribution here, you probably got stopped out. Okay, so in any event, price held the pullback. We had a perfect 50% retracement to 65.03. Buyers bought the dip, and it was back on to retest the 6880 to 6700 band to test and see. We tested the prior high. The prior pivot high was 66.53, and we chopped around there for a few days. We also noted that 300-point move kind of put in a head and shoulders pattern, and we were looking for resolution of that pattern, which had a target. If we go ahead and measure that move out, had a target up at 68.13, and that's exactly where the market stopped, right? Stopped right here at this prior high at the completion of that measured move. Okay? So framing that out, how we got here is important because that's going to help us out with the what's next. Okay? So let's remove this here. So keeping in mind that 65.03 pullback low was where the last place that buyers showed up and formed a higher low. Okay. All right. So what's next? Okay, so we know that this 6880 to 6700 was a significant pivot that the market struggled right below for quite a few days, and then it blasted through on news and pulled up right to the prior hourly high, right at this supply zone from the higher time frame, from the daily time frame, and now it's just been stuck at this overhead supply zone. Okay. So if buyers are going to protect this move and we should continue higher, we can expect on any pullback, where would we expect them to defend this trend? And I think that the first thing we have to measure out is from our prior pullback low, from the 6503 low to our most recent high. Okay. That would be the next measured move. And that pullback lines up almost perfectly with the 6780 to 6800 prior high that we needed to that needed to be overcome to change the hourly trend. So any pullback into that zone that buyers fail to hold, I think opens up the door for a retest of the lows. But we can expect here that buyers should show up, and at least initially, there should be somewhat of a bounce into that 6680 to 6700 band. All right, but that doesn't really help us for going into today, because that's 6680, 6700 is about 100 points away. Well, I will remind you though that when ES sells, we could be trading 6700 by lunchtime today. We all know that when the ES sells, it's elevator down. It's it jumps on the Autobahn and it's pedal to the metal all the way. All right. So going into yesterday, we highlighted that we were looking on this thin, poor structure that we had on the move coming up. You could probably see it better on a 60-minute. Okay. Here's our 60-minute. And we highlighted early in our prep work yesterday that if buyers were going to defend the gap up and it wasn't going to be kind of a gap and crap, that we were looking for the first pullback low of the ramp higher, of the news ramp, right? The initial move higher. Its first pullback low was 67.8350. And yesterday we said, as part of our morning prep and our setups, we highlighted that came out as one of our setups. So we planned to, if price looked below the 67.8350 and immediately reclaimed it, we were going to get long. And yes, coming into yesterday we were really super patient. We waited for it. And about 10 a.m., we got just that. Price came down. It made a low of 67.80. So it breached the low by 3.5 points, immediately reclaimed it. And we got long. And that move turned out to be really nice, because ultimately I think it went as high as 45 it went as high as 45 points. I know I got 3 scales out of it. So I got 5 points, 10 points, and then ultimately the last runner paid out at 40 points. So let's take a look at, so where does that put us today? Coming into today. All right, so let's frame out. First, let's start with the bullish argument, okay? So thus far, price is forming a higher low relative to that 67.83 that 67.80 pullback low. However, it doesn't really give us much to work with, because we're opening directly inside of value and directly within the prior day's range. So if we're going to see any higher price, any type of continuation move, the first thing we're going to want to know off the open is, what is our opening print? And where is price trading in relation to that opening print? Let's get a clear chart. Okay, so here, our high at 2 p.m. came in at 68.3150. You can see we kind of have this descending trend line here. Look, sorry. So one thing I want to know also is that yesterday, when we opened yesterday, price spent no time. We couldn't. Here, let me put on a filter here that'll show us the overnight session. So when price opened yesterday, we did not trade above the open for very long, and we could not test the overnight high. So what is that telling me? That's telling me that there were no buyers willing to validate the gap higher and participate in the move. That they were likely waiting for better prices to get long, or at least waiting to see if the move holds true. Okay, so we spent much of the day below the open, but we did have buyers show up at the pullback low and held the gap. So coming into today, our first point of reference is, at least my first point of reference, if we're opening in within value and within range, the first tell that we're going to move higher, because we're framing out the bullish argument right now. The first move that would tell me that we're going to move higher is if we can get a move above yesterday's highest traded price, or the volume point of control, at 68.15. So can we break above 68.15, which also happens to coincides with our descending trend line from our opening print, from our first print at the open, from the high of the first print to the high, the afternoon high. And it was respected in the overnight session when we made the high at 68.17. Price is now retesting it. So do we get something like this? We get to move up like this, where we get through the 68.15, which we're just about 3 handles below right now. Do we get above the 68.15, get above the descending trend line, chop around a bit, and then make a run at the 68.31 afternoon high, and then ultimately the prior session's overnight high, which was at 68.47. All right. So for the bullish argument, I think if we can get above 68.15 with strength and momentum, breach this descending trend line, move above the volume point of control, then it's game on to the upside. We can look for longs on pullbacks and target the overnight high at 68.23. There goes the opening bell. All right, so now let's take a look at the bearish argument. So really quickly, I think that this 67.80 reference is going to become really important. So do we come down here? Do we test 67.80, put another look below and fail and move higher? Or do we instead breach it, come below, it acts as resistance, and then we start to test into this poor structure here and re-auction this band here that's poorly auctioned? Okay, so for the bearish argument, do we get below 67.80, pull back to it, and it holds as resistance? Then we can make a move lower, or actually we can use the 67.92 overnight low as our more immediate term reference. So do we get below 67.92? You can see that more clearly here on the 15-minute. All right, so let's stay on alert. We just tested the volume point of control at 68.15, and we immediately pulled back. So For the downside argument, I think we can use 67.92 as a reference. If we get down below the overnight low, I got to get better at this. Do we get down below the overnight low, test it as resistance, and then we can get short there and target yesterday's low at 67.80, and hopefully be in a runner by then, and then make decisions on whether that's going to get into the gap or whether it's just going to hold again as support. But I do expect that area to be retested at some point. All right. So in order to look for longs, we're looking for a breach of 68.15, yesterday's volume point of control. At that point, we can start looking for longs to target the overnight high at 68.23. For the short side argument, if we begin to test down into the overnight low and that holds as resistance, whereas we get below value area low at 67.98, get below overnight low at 67.92, pull back to it, and then it holds as resistance, then we can start looking for shorts to go down and test the pullback low at 67.83 and yesterday's low at 67.80. All right. Let me mark off the open print here. It's going to matter today. 68.12.75, as it matters every day. All right, so we have our open print at 68.12.75. All right, so I think that frames out the bullish argument as well as the bearish argument. Now, here's the other argument that we always have to consider is the dreaded sideways move, right? So do we get one of those days where price test above the volume point of control, test overnight high, comes right back into range, where we make a move higher into 68.23, test yesterday's settlement at 68.23.75, and test value area high at 68.26, and then fall right back into range for a chop day? That would be the first sign that we're in for a choppy day, a range bound day, if we initially get a move up into the overnight high 68.23, 68.23.75, and test value area high at 68.26, and then come right back into range. Now, let's consider this, right? That the overnight inventory is 100% short, and so it makes sense that the first move is higher. So with that tell, we can kind of discern that, okay, so if the overnight inventory is short and we get a correction of that overnight inventory, but that overnight inventory fails to gain a following, fails to gain strength and momentum to get us above the overnight high, above the settlement, and above value area high, then that's going to be a big tell that either a choppy session is in the cards, or if it's swiftly rejected with strength and momentum, and we get back through the open, back through volume point of control, and start testing value area low for a move to test the overnight low, as well as then the pullback low at 67.83. Typically daily, the sideways move has, at least for me, has the smallest probability. However, I think that probability is pretty strong for today. Okay, because today we have an S3 day. So let me post the graphic for the intraday time swings that we're expecting today. So today's configuration is Series 3 S3L cycle day 2. So we're on alert for a choppy two-way trade type day. The configuration kind of dictates that. S3 days are notoriously range bound and choppy days. All right, thus far you can see that we've tested above the open, below the open, expecting that first move to be the move higher, and we're now testing above the volume point of control. So let's stay on alert for that. Oh, I got the scales out, so good on that. Okay. So I bought the pullback. I bought the breakout here after we failed to make a new low on the news. Just before the news at 7 a.m., we put in that higher low. The low at 67.92 was a higher low reference to yesterday's pullback low. So immediately after we made a higher low and then we made a higher high, I bought the pullback at 66.06. And I got two scales out of it at 5 and 7 points. And I have one contract left. You can see that on the left-hand chart. I just didn't manage this well because I thought the OCO would take care of it. All right. My target on that becomes the 68.23 overnight high. Pretty simple. Pretty simple stuff. So immediately here, guys, we can see like if there's one thing that I want to try to help everyone with and help myself also with, right, is to trade better, trade smarter, make sure that when we're making trading decisions, they make sense, right? Talking about them, talking through them. So this way we avoid those impulsive trades, those low probability trades, right? I think we can all do with less of those in our trading day. And so framing it out and talking about what we need to see in order to make smart bets, to make smart trades that make sense, that are in line with the dominant forces of the day. That's what I hope to achieve with you guys every day. I know that that's what I'm trying to work on every day with myself. And typically I'm sitting here trying to figure out what trade makes the most sense. Okay. And so yesterday we kind of framed that out well. It worked out really well for us. And going into today, I think that the first thing we have to be on alert for, I don't know if you guys remember, but a few days ago when I highlighted, I said, I think today's going to be a choppy day. And it turned out to be just that. I had 4 trades on that day, and 3 of them were losers. Okay. So fortunately, the one winner did well. And I had 2 losers, but the 2 losers, guys, I cut them so fast because I knew it. As soon as I got in, there was no follow through. It was like, as soon as I entered, I was down a few ticks. And then I was down a point. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to get out. And I remember I took a 2-point loss. And on another one, I took like a 3-tick loss. But I just GTFO'd it because the day I had to be right. And I wanted the trade to work immediately in my favor. And that's what you want to see on choppy days. As soon as you enter, if you're not getting anything out of it, stand aside because it's likely going to chop. And then what's going to happen is then you're going to be down, instead of being down a point or a few ticks, you're going to be down like 3 or 4 points. And then you're going to start rationalizing the position. It's not going to get any better. It's going to extend to close to your stop, whatever your stop is, 5, 7, 10 points. You're going to close it and it's going to reverse, right? That's the hallmark of choppy days, where you're getting chopped up on the long side, you're getting chopped up on the short side. So let's just stay mindful of that. We want to be If we can reduce the amount of impulsive trades we take, especially on choppy days, that day is a win. Understanding and having a good read on context can save us a lot of grief. It also is going to save us a lot of P&L and preserve the P&L from those days that our read is solid, we're one with the market, and we're moving in lockstep with the tape. All right, let's take a look at the internals. Let's see where we at. Okay. Yep, that makes sense. Remember, the overnight inventory was 100% short. So we're looking for that move. Our initial, what we're looking for is the move above yesterday's volume point of control, 68.13, which we're already above. Okay? We're looking for a breach of that descending trend line, which we are already above. Now, in order for me to get long, I'm going to be considering a continuation long above the overnight high. So do we get above the overnight high, above settlement, above value area high, pull back to, and does that pullback hold, or do we fall right back into range? If we can get above the overnight high, the settlement, the value area high, which are all stacked within a 4-point range, then we can try to take a long into yesterday's high, 68.36. And then maybe we gain a following and we can go up and test the overnight high from the gap up higher day, which was 68.47. All right. So got that. Okay, this trade is working out well. Boom. 68.23. That kind of makes sense. Does that make sense for everybody? Did anybody have any questions? Taking a look at the internals, 1-to-1 negative on the NYSE, 1.8-to-1 positive on the NASDAQ. Let's take a look at our core sector list. See if there's any insight there. Okay, so we have on our sector list, it's a bit early for a read on the sector list, guys. I'll just be honest with you. It's too early. Let's give that some time to develop. Let's see if I get that target up here. Narrow miss on that target, guys. Narrow missed by a point. That's horrible. You know, that sucks on a choppy day, because I mean, on choppy days, you're fighting for everything you can get. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Core sector list is our core sector list is, we have 9 sectors. Well, it keeps changing. It's too early. It's 9:45. Let's give that another 15 minutes. But the weighted AD is printing higher. Bit early for that too, but that's looking positive. Let's take a look at our cumulative tick. Shit, I'm gonna miss that target. Okay, so the cumulative tick, still no read there. All right, but the weighted AD is opening green, so that's positive. I'm not sure if that's a sign of just a gap higher, but we'll see. All right, overnight, the high is not a good high, so let's monitor that. I think we're going to trade through it at some point. See what the ATAs are doing. So on the 810, we have the 810 staging a short, which is at 68.2275. Yeah, oil is trading 99.82, up 5.7%. So watch out for that. Thanks, Jay Morrow. Yep, and hey, heads up on the VIX. The VIX is now bleeding. It's coming in after opening and popping and trading above its 5-minute range. The VIX made a high up at around 2175, and then now it's come off a buck 2085. It's down close to 1%. But no solid reads here, right? We have an opening drive on the Russell, which okay, that's great, but it hasn't tested its overnight high. It hadn't tested yesterday's high. Look out for that because the Russell has been stronger. So if we're going to get that continuation long above the overnight high, the Russell's probably going to go first. As the Russell has been giving us has been strongest of the three majors. I'm super close. I was super close to that target guy. I think I might just close this and just break all the rules because I really just want to book the win, to be honest with you. God damn it. I came within a point of that target. Whatever. All right. I'm going to close that out. Took out, I think, 7.5 points. I came within 1 point of the 12-point target, but failed. Whatever. It's trading. All right. So remember, on our intraday time swings, the clock is looking for an AM low sometime between 10:15 and 10:45. So stay on alert for that. Mixed bag here on the internal still, again, typical. We have a typical, okay, so our ATA CCI method the PTG CCI method just got us long on that pullback. So let's watch that. Always nice to have those operating when I can't spot the trade myself. I don't like that I'm looking for an AM low, but I in the early morning before I was logging in and I was preparing for the day, I brought the risk in on because I'm expecting a choppy day. So I recalibrated all the ATAs I cut the risk on all of them and I'm trading MES on them. Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. JM, I think you're right. However, I think that we need to test lower first. I think we need to go in and maybe do a half gap. That thin structure is notorious. I mean, it's weak, right? We don't know what's in there, and the market likes to revisit those areas. So, and on the daily chart, I'm not sure if I went over this, but so ultimately, guys, I'm expecting. So here, from this move up, I am not expecting a new all-time high. Like if we get a little bit higher, I'm gonna try to figure out how I could lay off some maybe buy some Junes or at least some Mays, some May puts, some out of the money, but I'll buy time on them because I think what we're gonna get is an ABC style correction. Okay. So here, I'm sure this thing stopped out. Okay, I just got stopped out of that. So $300 risk on that. Kind of had a feeling that was going to stop out, but whatever. So remember, look, interestingly enough, look where we're testing. We're testing that supply zone on our hourly chart. So that's interesting. This resistance zone here. Shit, I didn't realize that. I would have laid some off there. All right, no worries. So on the daily chart, you can see here that I kind of have these ABCs penciled in. So we have the first move up for with those, excuse me, the first move down for the A low. I'm looking for a B high up here somewhere. I In this area, it looks primed for me because this was that lower supply zone right here. So it was like starting right here. You're right testing. See, you can see it here just from eyeing it up. All these lows right here, right here, right here, right there. Okay. So so we have the A down. I'm looking for the B up. And then for the C down, for me, the only question is, so we have the A down, looking for a lower high relative to the all-time high. And then the only question would be is this C low a higher low or a lower low? So if it's a higher low, that means it's truncated, and we can expect that correction is over and reassess from there. Although we technically get really bullish into this time of the year, so I'm just wondering if we make it all-time high, a new all-time high. I don't see that in the cards at all. At least not on this leg. I cannot see the market going, just coming straight up here right now. Not after this. Not after this. It doesn't. I mean, I could be wrong, right? But I don't see it. I don't think that's happening. All right. Wow, that's a pullback in Nasdaq. Nasty Nasdaq. Wild pullback there. So, hey, heads up though. Look at the Russell, right? Relatively speaking to the majors. If you guys have a chart of that up, let me just pull it up. The Russell is holding strong. I mean, okay, so heads up. So the ES is now through its open print, through the volume, through yesterday's volume point of control at 68.14. It's through the open now at 68.12. Okay, so early on we said if we're unable to test the overnight high, the settlement value area high, and then we get back through the volume point of control daily open, that we had to consider one, it's going to be first probability of the choppy day. Second probability is that we could go and test value area low and maybe even the overnight low. All right. The internals being mixed the way they are, I don't think that we're going to get a full retracement down to the overnight low. But I think that's an easy if it does start moving, you're going to get successive 5 and 15-minute prints, red prints. It's not going to stop. It'll just go straight there. And you can see already we're back above the open, going back to the volume point of control. So all the early signs of a choppy open are playing out here. So just be mindful of that. Be cautious of that. If you like, so what's probably better to do today, and I don't know if this is in your skill set, but you might want to approach it like just trade the range, right? Scalp 2 points here, test those lows, scalp 2 points, test the highs, scalp 2 points. If you're good at that. So look, the Russell's holding up pretty strong here, relatively speaking. ES is right. Okay, so ES just came up and tested the opening print, couldn't even make it to volume to yesterday's VPOC at 68.14 and sold. So heads up on that. We can start now targeting to get through First need for ES is to get through the 21 period moving average. Let's see what that is on a 15-minute. I'm glad I took the 7 points on that trade when I did. All right, so on the 15-minute, okay, so if the ES is going to hold, this kind of makes sense though. Let's take a look at this, right? So we had this distribution down here, right? And then we had this distribution here. It's overnight session. So if we're going to make a move, like if this is just a choppy session, but we're not bearish, I'd expect this to hold. It also lines up with the 15-minute, 21 period moving average, which is a pretty solid indicator, and that's at 68.07. We just tested the 9 and bounced somewhat. The Russell is really strong here too. The Russell didn't even print red. All right. So again, just choppy. We're back above the open now. Testing that volume point of control. No edge in the internals. The VIX, no edge. It's still in prior days range. Oil is spiking now, guys. Oh man, oil's up $1 since the last time I read it. It's up to 169. No surprise there. All right, let me get out of this chart. Okay, so this supply zone here is the problem. Remember, keep an eye on this supply zone, guys. Right? You can see it right here. 68.20 to the overnight high from 68.47. We can just chop around in that for a day or two, and I wouldn't be surprised. As much as as much as we want to, trade and have good trade, have the market, as much as we want to trade and have good price movements and make a ton of money, the most important thing is to realize when it's not that day, so we don't waste a bunch of bullets and waste a bunch of mental capital on a day that we should have just probably taken off. So stay on alert for that. Again, we're trying to test that high again. If this ATA fails, then I'm shutting it down, or at least I'm going to reduce it. So that would be 2 stops, 2 back-to-back stops, but I do have this one that's working out for me in my favor. Okay. Yeah, it's just choppy. Yep, choppy again. Right back. Yep. I'm going to close this one out, guys. No need to sit around and wait in that. Yeah, that's not. Yeah. So check it out, JM. So we have the Russell Strong Nasdaq week, and ES is basically pretty much right in the middle. I I I I, I should have reduced the risk on this. I have to let it play out now. I'm gonna let it play out. Okay, here we go. Yep, it's playing out. Okay, we're gonna go up and test that high. So heads up, that high, the early high. Let's see, where's that at? 68.2175. That's typically not how you see an auction end. So I'm expecting that to be retested. So, or better said, the high of the day is not in. So heads up, guys. I thought Rich Handelstat was gonna come in and share some of his stats with us, but um, we'll see if he materializes. I'm still expecting him to show. Stay on, uh, stay tuned for that. Good. Got the first target on that. Oh man, nice, 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 nice. I got the first target on that uh, CCI PTG with the ATA Auto Trade Assistant. So pretty happy about that. Looking for a retest of the early high at 66.22. I think the high was 66.20, 66.2175. Do we just double top to the tick? That would be perfect. Yep, that's exactly what you get on a choppy day. Nvidia is green. Yep. Apple, Microsoft's red again. Tesla's red. Come on, baby. Let's get some follow through here. Russell strong. Nasdaq bounced, so it's not as came down fast and hard. Man, I couldn't imagine trading the. Do any of you? Are any of you guys trading the Nasdaq, the NQ? Yeah, that thing. I can't imagine trading that thing on a choppy day. Yikes, that would be tough. Yeah, he has stacked higher and then immediately pulled back. So double top that will made a lower high at that relative to the early high and then pulled back. So yeah, it's kind of what you expect here. Nothing in the market really rattles me, but except for a choppy day. I can't just those are the days that you just rather be doing something else. Why sit here and torture yourself? Get right back down to the developing point of control. Yeah, this is just, remember, this is not the day to attack the market, guys. Um, PR asks, what is the bright green line? Do you mean this line here in this lower center chart? Yeah, it's a tough read for sure. Top left. Okay. Bright green line. Do you mean this one right here? The first chart. Hmm. So let's just call this one the first chart right here, the one that has the Pitbull Traders kind of watermark. This is the first chart, center, two center charts, and the right hand chart. Which one are you talking about? Top left. Okay, bright green line. Oh, you mean this? This is just this, right? This thick. Okay, this thick green line. Sorry about that. That's super obvious. Wake up, Manny. Yeah. So that's a 89 period moving average. That's an EMA. It's an 89 period exponential moving average on a 750 tick chart. Yep. All right. Coming back in. Coming back down again. I'm gonna get stopped out, but at least I got a target out of it, so that's fine. Yeah, so this is just, you can see it's gonna be that choppy day. So pivot. Now let me just adjust this. Hang on. So I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna adjust this strategy. Got stopped out of that one too. It's a great thing about these ATAs, right? And kind of curve fit them to what your expectations are for the day. So on this one, I'm going to bring the risk in. Okay. And right back to the eyes. Yeah, today's it. You know, these types of days are just, they're hard. They're tough reads, man. It's better. I mean, look at what we've done since the open. Right. Let's take a look at the on the Thinkorswim chart. It's a little bit easier to read there. So since the open, I mean, Jesus Christ. Since the open, we have a 13-point range. B period has been completely 100% inside of A period. 13-point initial balance. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a choppy day. A choppy day. So just be careful out there, guys. Again, I hope to keep everyone safe and on the right side of things, just as much as I want to stay safe and stay on the right side of things. And this is just the type of day that you can, just give away tons of points, needlessly. I do think that we are going to retest that early high at 2175. I think that gets tested. Let me just adjust this to Nasdaq is now back near its lows. Russell's come in a bit, at least from its earlier move. Yeah. This market wants nothing to do with higher. I mean, every stab higher has been just, been met with no follow through. Right back down to the lows. It just makes no sense. I'm closing that one out too. All right, testing that 24-hour VWAP at 6809.75. VIX is making a move higher. It tested its early low and it's now starting to curl up. Oil, it broke out of its balance. It had a balance going on somewhere between 98 and 99 and it broke higher. So I think that's probably why we're seeing lower prices here. I just went ahead and cut that. Yeah. Yep. That's. I think that's the best approach here. Um, now we're back down to test that little distribution, that chop zone, that chop fest, but swiftly rejected from the highs. Today's an S3L day, so we're looking for that low within this time frame, right? 10:15 to 10:45. So look out for that. But it's just so choppy. Yep, we'll bounce higher and then right back down. If we cut through this, like this little distribution here that you can see on this 5 minute chart with strength and momentum, I think we can start looking at the overnight low. But I think decisions get made down there. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Tom. Yep, 67.64. SPX is trading 67.66 right now. So definitely at an inflection point. Yeah, I think that's hanging over everybody's. That's in the back of everybody's mind, Madge. But the book was bullish before the news dropped. Though I'll just say that there were signs of bullish activity. There were signs of accumulation at the lows. So um, all right. Nasdaq's now flipped red. It's below its earlier low, so it's that distribution that we saw, the similar balance area in the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq is the weakest of the three majors. And what makes a day like today tough is that you can easily take two trades, three trades, and have small losers, right? But those, say you have two small losers of 3 points each, right, which is relatively small for the ES, but that's 6 points, right? And then on the opposite side, so in order to have a profit on the day, you kind of need to make 12. So if you lost 6 points, you really lost seven because of commissions, and let's not talk about mental wear and tear. But then, so you kind of need to make 12 points back, and then you don't get the follow through on a day like today. So you're bleeding out points, getting small paper cuts left and right, and then you don't. It's hard to come by the move to kind of recoup that. That's why highly volatile days when we're in negative gamma and we got these large daily prints are really where it's at, because those days are more forgiving of mistakes, right? You can take a small, you can take losses, and then the market is moving. So if you catch a good one, then you can easily recoup. All right, right back up to test the open, and right back down again on a buy for March 31st. Okay. See what the VIX is doing. Oil is just breaking out again. 101.35 there, guys. So heads up on that. These markets are not an easy read whatsoever. Not an easy read whatsoever. The moment you think you're going to get some follow through, It just rips in the other direction. And there we go. Yep. Rip right back up. Yeah, I mean, and it's ripping higher, and it looks like the market is supportive, right? So I mean, oil is at 101. It's rallied $3 since we've had our eyes on it, and the ES has sold off 15 points, right? That's so you can tell that equities risk assets are being supportive, but with this oil headwind, it's going to be hard to gain any traction to the upside. And for us day traders, it's going to be hard to catch anything to the downside when it's just so supportive. So, yeah, we have to be careful out here. 68.1275 is our open print. Oil's at 101.50 now. I think we started calling it out at $99. Looks like it's beelining for that 102 price. NASDAQ is moving below its early low. I think we can start looking for a move to that overnight low, or at least a value area low. Value area low is 67.98 quarter. See what happens when we get down there. When the news came out, unemployment claims, we put in a low pivot there at 68.01. And on the 15-minute, we're now below that 21 period moving average. But that's not really a big tell for us because that thing's flattening out. Yeah, it's just going to be a choppy day. All right, let's see if we get a test of that value area low level. And then for a move down to overnight low, I really like a test of that overnight low. A look below and failed on there, I think would be great. 67.9250. Yeah, Nvidia's flat. VIX tested its early low and bounced. So Russell is giving it up now. It was the strongest of the three. That is no longer the case. Oil now up to 101.85, up 50 cents. Maybe I should have been trading oil. I think NASDAQ is the first one that's going to test its overnight low. So look out for that. That comes in somewhere around 24,951 around there. I don't know the exact read on that, but it's about to test yesterday's. Wait, is that yesterday's low? Okay, overnight. Okay, thanks. Yeah. ES is probably just gonna. What the hell? It would not surprise me here if we went back up, tested the open. Right back down to lows. NASDAQ is moving pretty good here. The one thing we haven't considered is, and I'm not sure. I just thought of it is is it possible that we just give back the gap up because the gap was based on there being a ceasefire and we just give that up today? go right back down to lows or get this big strong down move. So the first thing we're going to want to see in the entry for that would be that move below yesterday's pullback low at 67.92, sorry, 67.80. But first we would need, the first need would be below value area low 67.98. Let's see what happens there, and let's see what happens at the overnight low. Do we get through that with strength and momentum at 67.92.50? I'm more inclined to think we get another day of just sideways up here. It kind of makes sense to me, but we'll see. Heads up, we left a single print at 68.08 quarter, 68.0850. Couple single prints there. So everything's wicking here. NASDAQ, NQ, the Russell making a higher low. So everything is wicking here. But let's see if ES fills those single prints at 6808. Yep, just filled them. 6808.50. Testing VWAP at 6809. Pretty choppy. I'm glad I took those 7 points earlier. Yep. So I'm going to wait for, if we're gonna get bearish, if we're gonna look, in order for me to get, so I'm not gonna take a short when I'm in the window for a low. I'd rather wait for the high pivot, which comes in today, roughly in the 11 o'clock hour, sometime between 11:20 and 11:40. I might miss something, but so be it. Hang tight, guys. I'm just reading something here, looking through some of these uh, statistical charts. Not much going on. I certainly don't want to start fixating on this chart right now when price is just chopping around. When price is chopping around in a 20-point range, it's nothing to do. Holy shit. Oil 102.17. Yikes. Yeah, I just think it's going to be hard for equities to get any type of meaningful upside while oil is rallying. So looking for there's two ways to frame it, right? So either which way, I'm not willing to buy the AM low because of what oil is doing. So I'd rather, I'd rather I don't know. It's a 20-point range, guys. There's just not much to do here, man. What I don't want to do is like what I said before is get chopped up, be down, get the ATA. Let's see, make sure that these ATAs are in line. I'm trading the ATAs on MES, like as I told you earlier. I'm not willing to risk much, and I'm max risk on those. I reduced my risk on all the ATAs down to $250 per trade. So I'm not willing to risk much there. Trading them really small, keeping it in check. So do you guys? Well, let me ask you this. So when you have, say you have, a few stop outs in a row, and you're not as mentally tough as you'd like to be, do you have a set? Is there a set protocol or just like a set kind of not or a guideline that you follow to get yourself back on track? Like I know, at least for me, what I try to do is, if I have two or three losers in a row, the first thing, like I'll try to get a small win, like to try to get back into the game, right? Um, and then after that small win, I'll kind of step away and reassess. But I don't know. For me personally, it's kind of like getting back to neutral. So if I have a couple of small stop outs, or if I have a couple of big ones, especially the big ones, it's important for me to get a win. And days seem to go better when the first trade of the day is a win, and you acknowledge that. I don't know. That's just for me. Not sure how it works out for you guys. But okay, so look, we put in the AM low. That window is now closing at 10:45. So now we're looking for that high pivot. I dropped the graphic in the chart. Scroll up if you need it, but we're looking for a high pivot somewhere between 11 and around 11:30, 11:20, 11:40, between 11:20 and 11:40. Let me not be ambiguous. And these obviously are just time windows. They're not set in stone. Nothing in trading is linear. Not much going on here, guys. We just spiked up and tested developing value area high at 68.17. It came in a little bit. Oil's still up there at trading 101.94. Internals are still red, 1.4 to 1 negative on the NYSE, 1 to 1 negative on the NASDAQ. The Interestingly enough, though, the VIX, the bounce failed. It's coming right back down. It's now below its first 5-minute low. NASDAQ looks like it's testing its halfback or maybe slightly above it. Russell is approaching its high. Just going through some charts here, guys. Hang on. Second, really not much to see here. But thanks for keeping me company, those who are still around. It's boring AF. That's a good question. Yep, you're absolutely right about that. There's divergence here everywhere. So here's what Rev's talking about. So we have an M pattern. The good eye, Rev. So an M pattern kind of goes like this: when the market comes up, comes back down, comes back up, and then the completion is typically down. You can see we have the divergence here on the MACD and divergence in the RSI. We also have are in the window for a high pivot, although it's a little bit early. I tell you, price comes first, not time. Price first, time second. All right, we just tested VWAP at 6809. Oil is up at 102.25. Reached that 102 mark. Yep, Nvidia bounced, making a move higher. Apple peeling off. Microsoft's been weak for a while. The 10 years up a 0.5%. So if any of you like to fall asleep at night, watch the bonds. Bonds are like a sound machine. Although that is it the ZB or ZN? It's like, isn't it 3150 a tick? It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the faint of heart. See, what are our ticks doing? We just had a tick spike from -6 to +6. Another sign of chop. Take a look at the sector list. Yeah, more confirmation of a choppy day, right? So we have one, two, three, four, five sectors red. One, two, three, four, five, six green. Chop City. Hopefully something will materialize, but let's wait for the edges. Wait for those edges. Yep. Weird. 28 times. I just counted it 28 times through the open, above and below. Yeah, that sucks. Just zero edge. NASDAQ's making a lower high. The Russell's making a lower high. I mean, we have a 20-point range. Just not to see. I'm keep thumbing through these statistical charts. Let me just see if I find anything worthwhile to share. Um, See if we get a test of that early high pivot at 68.21. If we can get above there, then I guess what makes sense is that we test the overnight high at 68.23. I'll be on the lookout there for a look above and fail. Nasdaq's internals just went green, so that's interesting. VIX is below its early low. Crude comes off about 90 cents. All right, we're now above value area high. I'm sorry, overnight high. Two things here: look above and fail, or we get the continuation long. But remember up here we have value area high at 68.26. The settlement 68.2375. Overnight high 68.23. So be on the lookout for the continuation long above. So if we can get above with strength and momentum and get a snapback for the continuation, or do we roll over, right, where we come up here, come down, and then maybe get a move higher, or do we come down here, roll over, and then get the move lower? Yep, nice trade, PR. Well done. All right, guys, it's 11:20. I'm gonna call it a day. That's a wrap for me. I hope we I hope we were able to keep you guys on the right side of things. I didn't do much today. I had that one early trade that I'm glad I cut it at 7 points, but still looking for the same things I mentioned, right? Continuation long here above the overnight high, or do we get above, look back and fail? Either which way, but right now we're at the extreme, right? So we're probably going to get a tradable move out of this. So I want to make sure I dial in and I'm super focused on that. Plus, I have to use the bathroom. So that's going to call for me. I'll be lurking in the background. If anything big happens, I'll jump back on. But have a good day. Thanks for hanging out with me. It's always fun sharing thoughts and helping me walk through this shit. Walk through this stuff. Later, guys. Thanks, Red. Appreciate it, man.